Hey guys, what's going on? I want to shoot this quick video. I just received an email from somebody who was asking me a couple of questions, but something that they said which actually has not really much to do with their actual question. So if you're watching this, it's from Carissa. So Carissa, if you're watching this, I'm gonna respond to your email and answer the question that you actually asked me. But I want to highlight this one point, and I'll probably point you to this video in my response to your email. So I'm going to quickly read her email, and then I will answer the question that she didn't ask me. Hi Carter, I've been dieting in quotes for almost 6 years now, and tracking is just getting very tedious. But I'm only about one step away from my goal size, which is about 5 to 10 pounds away, I'm guessing. I'm 5'2", 145 pounds, with quite a bit of muscle, right on. So I know tracking will likely have to be a part of getting to my next goal. All right, and then she had an actual question, but I'm going to skip that right now for this video, and I want to talk about just something that she mentioned in that first introduction paragraph, because I think it's really important to talk about. So something I get asked about a lot is tracking, and specifically with, am I going to have to count calories for the rest of my life? Am I going to have to track my food? Am I going to have to keep a food journal? Am I going to have to use a food scale forever? And I think it frustrates a lot of people, maybe more than frustrates, or a different word to use would just be intimidates people, because they're afraid that if they stop tracking their nutrition, then they're going to gain all their weight back, or they're going to go back to square one. On the other hand, there are people like Carissa who, maybe Carissa isn't like this, but I'm just using her email as an example. People who, once they finish losing weight or achieving their goal, they just completely stop tracking. They just go back to doing whatever they were doing before, and a lot of the times it ends up they gain all their weight back and they are kind of back to square one as well. And so you have these two extremes of people, the people who are nervous about counting or stopping counting and thinking that as soon as they stop they're going to gain all their weight back, and then there are the people who are planning on never counting again the second they achieve their goal. I don't like to think of tracking calories or tracking macronutrients as a diet. Like, people always like to say I'm on the macro diet, or I'm counting my calories for my diet. It's totally different in my mind. Now, things like Jenny Craig or the ketogenic diet, those things are specific diets with specific rules, guidelines, yeses and nos. With calorie counting and food tracking in general, you're not following any set rule. You're literally just keeping track or paying attention to the quantity and quality of the food you're eating. Because the thing is, and we've talked about this before, every diet that's working is in some way creating a calorie deficit. So with counting calories, all you're really doing is focusing on the one thing that's really going to matter for gaining and losing weight. And so for the people who get nervous about stopping tracking, I think that their worry comes in that because they have been able to keep track of their food and have this log and this record of it, they've been able to control themselves, and they're afraid that as soon as they stop tracking, they're just going to go off the deep end and eat like crazy or whatever. And I don't think that's the right way to think about it, because once you start tracking your nutrition, especially if you've done it for 3 to 6 months or longer, you've been tracking your food every day, you've been ideally weighing your food, and you know what portion sizes look like, and you've been practicing that and staying consistent, you're at a different place at that point. You're not where you were when you started. When you started, you probably had no idea how many calories was in an apple. You had no idea the difference between 1 tablespoon of peanut butter and 3 tablespoons of peanut butter. You had none of that mental knowledge just kind of stored in your head. And as you've gone through, you've probably realized, wow, a whole slice of pizza has 300 calories. No wonder it's so easy to eat a bunch of it and gain weight. Or you might have even learned something like, wow, an avocado salad has a lot of calories, especially when it's drenched in dressing. And you learn these things, and once you just stop doing it, it's not like that goes away. It's not like that knowledge disappears. You're able to look at a plate of food, and you should know, within some degree of certainty, if it's gonna have a bunch of calories or not. Now, the other group of people in this problem are the people who are ready to stop counting as soon as they achieve their goal. And I definitely think that you should get to a point where you don't have to count your calories. Like me, for example, I don't really track my nutrition. Well, right now I am, just because if you watch my last video where I talked about self-sabotage, one thing that's been an issue for me is gaining weight and allowing myself to build muscle. And so now I'm tracking every day, for the accountability of knowing that I'm eating this many calories every day and I'm not gonna like undereat or whatever. I'm gonna make sure I'm eating enough to see results. But if you have the mindset right now that as soon as you achieve your goal, you're going to stop doing everything that you were doing when you were dieting, that's sort of a recipe for failure, and you're sort of setting yourself up for gaining weight back, honestly. Because remember, what you were doing to maintain a higher body weight, or what you were doing when you were gaining weight and struggling, that has to look different than what you're going to be doing when you're maintaining a leaner and healthier body. Even though that might not require counting calories, it will require changes to your eating habits, to your lifestyle habits, to how frequently you're doing certain things, whether it be late night eating, or how often you're drinking, or in terms of quantity, how much you're drinking. All of those things are going to have to be taken into account in some way, because if not, you're going to be slowly on that track of gaining weight and getting back to that starting point. And so this is what I think, and sort of trying to consolidate the randomness of this video, this is the actionable advice, I guess. Let's say that you have lost weight, counting calories, tracking your nutrition. Awesome, good job, that's great, that's amazing, go celebrate, don't eat too much food, just enjoy yourself, whatever, right? So you've achieved your goal, whatever that goal is. Now that you are focusing on maintaining your weight, I personally think it's a good idea to continue tracking, even as you're going up to maintenance calories. Maybe you're not being as strict with making sure that portions are exact, or maybe you're being a little bit more flexible with going out to eat and drinking, and how often you're kind of going over your targets. But I still think it helps to keep a log, keep accountable with what you're eating, and instead of focusing on losing now, your next goal should be, okay, where do I see I struggle the most? So maybe for you it's overeating at night. For others it's going out on the weekends. Where do you struggle? Now figure out what can you do that doesn't involve counting calories to help you make the best decisions in those moments. If it's overeating at night, maybe now you don't put certain foods in your house. Or if they are in your house, you have them pre-portioned and you have a rule set where you're only allowed to have one, or whatever it is. I know that's easier said than done, but just go along with me here. Whatever it is your problem is, or whatever it is your struggle is, you need to identify that specifically. And once you start to build habits and strategies around those things, that's what makes it easier to pull back from counting as much, or pull back from tracking your nutrition as much, and to be a bit more loosey-goosey and kind of go with the flow of things. Now, something that I continue to do no matter what is I still, track my weight and track my measurements. I'm just jumping on the scale probably once a week. I'm not really worried about it if it's up 3 pounds, down 4 pounds. That doesn't really matter to me. Or at the time, whenever I don't have a specific goal like I do right now. If I'm just maintaining, those things don't really matter to me. I'm looking at big changes, and it's something where if you gain 15 pounds over the course of a couple of months, something's going wrong. Somewhere you're eating too much food, and that might mean you need to reintroduce tracking for a while, figure out what that is, and then you can fix that issue and kind of phase your way out of it again. The main thing I want to get across in this video is just that no, you don't have to track calories forever, but don't think that you should just stop completely, or think that once you've lost your weight you can just go back to doing whatever you're doing before. There has to be some type of change, and I think the more gradual you can implement those changes, the better, because you're going to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And just a side note before I finish this video, if tracking your calories is stressing you out, or you feel like it's taking too much of your time, you're probably doing something wrong, or you have some type of restriction involved with it that's unnecessary. Towards the end of my diet, whenever I was really dialed in and I was tracking and I had done it for a long time, it only took about 5 to 10 minutes a day really to log my food and make sure that I was hitting my calorie range and my protein range or whatever. I still went out with friends. My food choices were maybe different. They were probably a little bit more macro friendly at times, but I never let my tracking get in the way of my friendships or my family or events or whatever. I still was living life. So if tracking is stressing you out, figure out, okay, why is it so strict? Am I thinking that I need to be perfect? A lot of times people think if they go over their calories by 50 calories, then they've ruined the entire day, which obviously isn't true. Maybe it's you still think that certain foods are bad. Maybe you go over your carbs a little bit, but your calories are still in check, but because you went over your carbs, you think that you've ruined everything, which is obviously not an issue either. Whatever that problem is, I would just address it, because if tracking is stressful for you, I think there's a good chance that the stress is coming from your application or your method of tracking rather than tracking itself, because it shouldn't be something that's overly obsessive or time consuming, which is one of the reasons why I think it's a good idea to continue tracking after dieting, because at that point it shouldn't be something that's taking more than 5 to 10 minutes a day at most. So I hope that this video was helpful. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.